peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories. Again, bonus content all over the place this week. Uh, this is Shelf Stories, a channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by for today's episode of Shelf Help. Yes, she loves it. The series episodes where I give tips and tricks on how to become a happier gamer and a happier person. So I have the distinct pleasure and honor. This was my favorite show of the year when this woman had me on to interview me about Shelf Stories. You may not recognize her because it's all podcasts from this person, but I am so happy that this person woke up early, put on some whatever women do to look her best, and I'm so happy to have her on. This is Christina the Pink Peg.
Yes.
From Blue Peg, Pink Peg podcast. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. I'm super excited that we're collaborating again and getting to help talk about some really probably heavy stuff, but I think important things that maybe people can relate to and take something away from it.
I do not intend this to be the only one. In fact, maybe we'll do this more and more because I love the dynamic, right? So people know I'm very when I get into my stuff, I get a little bit hot and heated. Mm-hmm. And a topic came up to me that just got me. Like it hit me right in the feels. And I wanted to reach out to Christina. So this is not going to be the usual episode that is like I'm interviewing and featuring somebody. We are two mental health professionals, not giving professional advice. So like this is just us talking from our background. So got to give that disclaimer right there. We are talking about teenagers. My work was with teenagers. There's a lot of my client load is high school and young adult, and college. And Christina also works with teenagers in her field. So I'll ask her to introduce that in a second. But to introduce the topic today, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is that our teenagers here in America are in trouble. Read an article in the Times earlier in the week that talked about how parents are reporting somewhere in around 40 some odd % increase in their teenagers reporting depression, anxiety, loneliness, lots of just mental health stuff. And then, bearing out in the stats, visits to the emergency room, which were already up, which we'll go talk about, over the last decades. But, now it's spiked up 31% more teenagers in the emergency room for mental health issues. And this is a vastly personal issue to me. And I know that in board gaming, we have barely any teenagers. I know that, look at Christina, look at my shelf. Which teenager wants to engage in this nerdery when there's all this social media out there? So I don't think teenagers are watching this too much, but parents of teenagers are watching this. Game store owners with the Magic players who are in the back, not so much in the back, but increasingly so, because we're opening up. Game store owners and people who frequent game stores might encounter teenagers. There is I can't even talk. This is why I invited Christina on, because she is kind of the water to my fire. She is the yin to my yang. It is amazing to have her on. Let me before we get into all that though, please introduce yourself and the background that you bring.
Yeah, so I'm a social worker by trade. I have my master's in social work. I work at a children's advocacy center, which in a nutshell, we are a facility that works with law enforcement and social services, and children come to our facility so that we can interview them when they've made allegations or when allegations have been made of abuse and neglect. So primarily my area of expertise is child sexual abuse. But we see kids in ages of all kinds coming in who've experienced trauma, whether it's been hands-on trauma or kids who've witnessed homicide, domestic violence, all that kind of thing. And so I interact with teenagers on a daily basis. And that, obviously they're coming to us that already have an element of trauma to it. But when we're in there, we talk about all kinds of things that are affecting them. And like you mentioned, the article talked about just this increase of reporting of depression and mental health issues. But what I find fascinating, and you've probably seen this too, Jason, is that it's the self-reporting. I mean, that they never, mental health issues has come a long way as far as being a topic that people can openly talk about and really removing that stigma. And now our teenagers are self-reporting, where before they wouldn't talk. I mean, teenagers hardly talk about anything anyway. So now it's gotten so bad that they are having to self-report kind of their own mental health issues, which again, there's a double-edged sword to that. It's good because they're opening up about it, but it's bad because parents, grown-ups, adults, we've either been blind to it or just so caught up that we haven't noticed what this impact is having on our kids. And it's really problematic. So I'm glad we're going to talk about it.
So I'm going to try to make this, I know I usually go an hour. I'm going to try to make this a little bit shorter so people can kind of like just come in and out, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll let the conversation go, see how it goes. So I will be like right up front. And I think people are kind of getting used to that. This is how I roll. I don't care. Like, I will put my junk out there and people can resonate and I'll deal with it. I'll deal with the blowback. So this is personal to me. So not only do I work with teenagers and young adults. That's kind of like one of my core things, right? I know I'll do a lot about culture. I know I'll do a little about other stuff, but like teenagers are abound. Every culture has teenagers. And in America, in where I'm at, a lot of them face similar issues. And I'm seeing it. This isn't just stats. To me, I am seeing it. Like in February alone, I made 4 referrals for teenagers into the psych ward. Getting them out of school and going to the psych ward. And that's a lot. And that's a lot of upset parents. And that's a lot of upset school officials and all this other stuff. And, it's just like, it's gotten better, but I mean, people, they're out of the psych ward, but it hasn't gotten like better.
Right.
And so like, I'm seeing it in my practice. And also just, I remember just, being a teenager in the 90s. And I really do think it wasn't, like, it was not great in the 90s, but like, it was not good either. I remember specifically just being a teenager and not feeling like I could trust the adults in my life and feeling like I couldn't, like, what Christina said, I didn't have an instinct to talk. I may not even have the vocabulary to talk. Now the vocabulary is more available, for better or worse. I mean, I know people like I'm so anxious, I'm so depressed, and it becomes like this performative thing. I get that part and people get turned off by that, but I want to look past that. Like if they're saying that and, they're not just performing, that there's a problem. And if you really look under the hood, as professionals and as empathetic people, there really is a problem. So, I mean, from a personal perspective, what I remember experiencing from a professional perspective, it's tearing me apart. It really is. And I know people like, oh, you're mad again about something. It's like, look at my other stuff. I'm happy over there.
Well, and I think too, I think, it's not so much that you're mad about it. It's more of like, there's a problem, right? And I think we need to be open about talking about. The fire alarm
is ringing. I'm not
just ringing, right? And we have to address it, or it's going to get worse and such a bigger problem. And so, like you, I know in the past, we've never really had to have policies in place at our organization of what we do when a kid is on site threatening self-harm, right? We just didn't really see a lot of that. We weren't seeing a lot of those situations. And like you, in the past couple of months, we've had to ECO like 3 or 4 kids from our facility.
What is ECO?
Like emergency order to get hospitalized or at least assessed, right? And it was kind of like, we had to start from scratch of like, well, we need a policy about that. We need to figure out how we're doing this and how we're doing it in a best way that's not re-traumatizing the child who's in our facility. And then also the parent who brought them, they usually come in because of a outside trauma, physical abuse or whatever. So that parent's already reeling from that. And then on top of that, we're saying like, look, you need to take your kid over to the hospital to get assessed and evaluated because they're making some pretty damning statements that could be a harm to themselves or to others. And that's another bomb we're dropping on parents too. And so it's really interesting that how, the pandemic has forced people to do a lot of different things. And maybe this has forced us, excuse me, to pay attention, right? To really pay attention to what's going on.
So now we're starting to get into why, which is really the thing that I wanted to get into in this conversation. So the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. How is the pandemic changing the game for teenagers?
So I think it's there's like, we're dealing with onions here, Jason. There's like layers and layers to stuff. So personally and professionally, what I have seen is that we adapted to the pandemic as far as quarantining and putting physical parameters in place to keep us safe, right? Mask wearing, 6 feet apart. So we did all of that really well.
Well, 1,000 feet apart in terms of Zoom.
Right. But we didn't address the impact that it was going to have on our mental health, not only for adults, but also our kids. And then our kids were left to live in this world like as if the pandemic wasn't existing. And it's not what happened. And we just were blind to the fact that we had expectations of our children to operate the same way. And it wasn't fair, basically, I think.
Let's be a lot more concrete about that. We expect them to go to school at the same pace, to do the same work, to do this work the same way that they've done the entire time. And we already had a problem. We already had, like, before the pandemic, we already had, more and more teenagers feeling pressure. If this conversation is about one thing, it's about pressure. The pressure they get from society, the pressure they get from parents, the pressure they get from, their school counselors. And these are, so, I mean, obviously this is a little bit like a middle class thing, but even reaching down, among the working classes, like, the single parents are like, no, you have to go, just so, like, there's this pressure on kids to school. And it has, like, you just look at it, you look at, like, more kids are taking more advanced placement classes.
Yep.
AP.
Yeah.
Right.
And not like high school, like middle school, like 6th grade. Like what? Why?
This was like, I went to like a really smart school, the Stuyvesant High School for the Gifted and Talented in New York City. And so, like, they had, like, people went to AP, but you can get away with not doing an AP. I didn't take a single AP class.
Yeah.
And it's like, nowadays that's impossible. And an AP class, to me, it's like, it's not even like, it's probably the same material, but like more work. You're coming home with piles and piles of homework, right? And the grade, the pressure to, like, get grades and get and pass and everything. So, like, we are putting, I don't even, like, you have to explain the sociology of why this is happening, but, like, it is so much, it's like more and more important to, like, not only put kids in, to succeed at school, but, like, to attain and not just go to college, any college, but, like, go to that college. Like, okay, if you're going to somewhere, you got to go to that college. You got, there's limited spots. So we have to do this, this, and this. And not only are the academics going up, now we're, like, molding the kids' extracurriculars.
Right.
So they have to do debate club, and they have to do, some networking thing like snowboarding, because the other people go, in my neighborhood, go to snowboarding. And it's like, we're roping kids into these certain things, and, they're not getting jobs, and they're not doing, like, just, things that don't look good on college resumes. So we're just, like, more and more funneling these kids pressure.
Yeah. And it's so crazy. So in Virginia, the elementary level schools have standardized testing, like SOLs, right? And so in 4th and 5th grade, they have to take these SOL tests. And my sister-in-law is a teacher, and she teaches 4th grade. And last year she had a 4th grader who was literally having, like, panic attacks, anxiety attacks about a test for 4th grade. And it just blew my mind that it was like, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
And the other thing, like, if you think about the last couple of years, in your profession, in your career, who's asked you, like, how'd you do in high school, Jason? What was your GPA? Like, nobody's asking those questions. Right. And so I think it is like this, our society and our culture has really put an importance, a label on the fact that if you don't do well in school, academia, whatever else it is, that you're less, right? And that's so not true. Like, it's just crazy.
You're going to get left behind. Limited spots, limited resources. There's only so much, and you have to fit yourself through that narrow bottleneck, or else you're going to, be, less and fall behind, and the resources fall behind, and the race fall behind, and the Joneses race. And, the canary in the coal mine story for me was the college cheating scandal. The silliest story of, like, oh, look, Aunt Becky's going to jail because she cheated your daughter's test. And, like, So to me, that was like a harbinger story that like we're gonna have a bigger problem, because it showed the extent to which parents feel pressure. Parents feel the pressure. Parents feel the pressure to get their kid this and get their kid that and get their kid this, and make sure they, they either do, put it on them, or if it's rich parents, they'll just cheat because it's easy to cheat.
Right.
But then if you're poor parents, there's no cheating. You don't have the resource to play that game, so you're gonna put it on the kid.
Right.
But that pressure, that's what the story to me was about. It wasn't just about Aunt Becky, whatever. It was about the pressure that parents and kids feel to like somehow in the richest country in the world, we have limited resources and diminishing resources, and we all have to like grabble. And what is it doing
to our kids?
What is it doing to our kids? I'll tell you just a quick story. I know I'm going on a little bit. I warned Christina ahead of time that this was going to happen. And so she's cool to play the water to my fire. Anyway, so a couple of years ago, again, before the pandemic, I had a girl as a client. She was a salutatorian in her class, right? Salutatorian is, for anybody who doesn't know, like one below valedictorian, the highest level of the class. So like she had, and because of APs, her GPA was like 6.6, something ridiculous. Like 4.0 is supposed to be the max, but like you get double for AP. So she had so many APs that it was like just this ridiculous GPA. It's like, oh, whatever. And, just stressed out, pressured, feeling like, whatever. So then she's doing her speech, and then she stops in the middle of her speech. And I wasn't there, I'm getting this secondhand. But I see it in my mind's eye. She stops in the middle of her speech and just has a complete nervous breakdown. I had no childhood. I was robbed of, feeling like I had friends. I have no friends. I have no one to talk to. You, mom, you, counselor, you, history teacher, just pointing people out, going, you did this to me. And they had to like drag her away from the podium and take her to the emergency room right there on the spot. And, the teacher's going out, like, sorry about that interruption, and, covering things up. But it was like, that is like the pressure cooker that was bubbling right under the surface. And half the kids they're not going there, go, whoa, she's going crazy. They're going like, oh my God, her, if she's feeling pressure, I mean, I'm feeling the pressure too. And everybody like resonated. With that.
and too, like the sad thing is that she was probably speaking the truth, right? She was speaking the truth of like what happens when we put adult expectations or our own future hopes of what we want our kids to do or be or whatever on our kids, and what that does to them. And it's just not fair. And so, we talk about trying to get into these best schools and but, over the last couple of years, even the people who went the best schools aren't getting jobs. Like, nobody's getting hired.
It's not like it's working.
It's not like it's working, but yet the kids that go to, vocational school and trade school, they're getting jobs right away because that stuff matters. And they're doing better than our kids who are trying to get in, doing 4-year academia colleges and stuff. And it's just bananas to think that like that's what we should be aiming for, right? As parents, as adults, what we should be aiming for is to ensure that our kids are loved and are happy and are healthy, both physically and mentally, right? And it seems basic because that's, our Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like food, clothing, shelter, love, and social interaction. And we
esteem and feeling good internally, and not just like achievement based self-esteem. It's all achievement based self-esteem. And I could hear some people, and I try to come up with counter arguments and like dialogue all the time. My head is large to contain multitudes. I always have people, and I can hear people saying, well, I mean, what is wrong with giving people what is wrong with like, holding kids to standards, right? That was the thing, right? Standards. Like, what's wrong with holding a kid to a standard? What's wrong with this? A, it's too much. A, blow your nose too hard and it bleeds. That, you have to have a balance with that. And B, there's another context to this. What else is happening to teenagers? What else is a big revolution for teenagers? Social media, personal devices, pockets in your phone, which are basically like giving a kid a liquor cabinet and here, have it in your pocket. Right. So it's like, not only are we putting all these pressure on the kids, they all have phones, and it's like this bashing of hedonism. So it's like that literally we're ripping at our kids' psyches, pulling them in two different directions. So it's like, okay, pressure, stupid TikTok videos of cats falling off of, of chairs, and, how long are my snap streaks? My 250, 300, 400, how high are my followers? So like,
right.
so it's like this hedonism on one side and this like massive pressure on the other side, and just dumped it on kids.
Their brains are still developing. Like
when the cement is the wettest, when stuff gets in there, like, messaging about like whatever they get on the social media or whatever they get from their parents about the, and the counselors and everything. I'll get to the school counselors in just a second. Oh, man. But like the cement is the wettest. The things you remember at that teenage years is things you're going to remember for the rest of your life. I always remind people, point them out. Like, okay, think of the songs you remember when you were a teenager. Think of the songs that you played. You could probably sing every lyric to every song you heard when you were 14.
Right.
Like,
right.
If you're like 60 something or 50 something and you remember all those words, that's how baked in it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way with self-esteem stuff. It's the same way with messaging. And it's like what we're doing to these kids and what's happening. What, obviously, visits to the emergency room, they're, self-reporting, self-harming. And even if they make it to the end, what are they getting at the end of this?
Right. And I think too, self-medicating, I think that's a big thing, is that, kids are self-medicating with either legal or illegal issues that
vaping.
Right. Just kind of all kinds of things. And it's
name me a school that doesn't have like massive, like where the bathroom doesn't smell all like vape.
Right. Or like even the kids. So that if you think about the pressure of schoolwork and doing well, the kids who are self-medicating with the Adderall and all of those stuff just to stay like, it's just, oh my goodness, it just makes my heart hurt to think of like what, like for me, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but
younger than me, I'm sure.
I don't know. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like now to be a teenager now, right? Like, I just can't imagine the adult pressure that our kids are facing. And even like, so let's take school out of it, right? Because that's a big pressure, but let's think about the pressures of just kids in general having to deal with adult issues, like, and the pandemic forcing kids to grow up super fast because adults are just still also trying to hold it all together. Like some people were still, even though we might be functioning on the outward side of things and it looks like people are functioning well, everybody was struggling and probably is still struggling from the pandemic. And that bleeds over to our kids.
Brings us back to the context. Like, so like all the stuff we're talking about was before. We could have made this episode 2 years ago. But now, with the pandemic, with the expectation that like we just do everything we do the way we did it before, and now we're just doing it at home over Zoom.
Yeah,
we curriculum's not adjusted, not putting in like prosocial other things with God forbid ungraded.
Right.
God forbid pass fail. And so I was talking about counselors before. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with a kid and it's clear they need a break. And it's clear. And then I'll tell that to the counselor. And I've been to counselors meetings, I've been to there, and there is such a resistance to like letting the kid have a week. It's like, we'll talk about this and we'll adjust this. It's like, no, this kid needs a break.
Right.
And the only time they get a break is when they snap and go to the psych ward. That's their break. Is that the model we want? This is what we want to do.
And it's funny because like we wouldn't put that expectation on an adult. If an adult needs a break, they take a vacation or they leave work or they go on an absence. Like they have the choice and the power to do that.
Unless you work for like Amazon, which in case that's the same way, because it's like, you don't get your PTO. It's almost like we've taken that like over pressured model and we're putting it on kids.
Right. And like I loved that the concept of like, I think what ended up happening was that we were expecting every kid to operate the same way, but everybody's different and everybody needs kind of like, we don't need to expect our kids to adapt to the system. We need to change the system to adapt to the differences in our children. And it's not there yet.
It's not I don't hear the conversation. So like I try to keep it short, just to kind of get to like, okay, this is the problem, right? these are the problems, and it's coming together and landing squarely on our young people. And this is a problem that's been growing for decades. This isn't like a unique thing. Like, it's been growing for decades. We haven't even got into like, the way we organize our families. Like,
Right.
Fewer family resources around, just nuclear family. It's just you in a room. And, like, okay, we all like ran to the suburbs and, or like we ran to like, isolated homes, however that looks. And it's like, well, wow, look, I have no resources to deal with this stuff now. So then, homes and technology and just everything coming together is landing on our kids, and they're snapping.
And the pandemic was just the little boop drop right on the top.
And it's just going to roll more and more. Like, and we're always seeing it. Like, we're seeing like the first generation of kids that grew up without recess and that grew up without, art. And like that was the first thing to go. Like, so like Virginia had, and it wasn't the only one having the fourth grade standardized test.
Yeah.
Like, that's been going for a couple of decades. And it's like, what are we getting now? Like, these adults are complaining, oh, these kids are angrier than ever. These kids are, screaming and they want to cancel everything. It's like, they didn't have any recess. They didn't learn social and emotional things. We did that.
Yeah.
No wonder they're so mad they want to cancel everything. Like, we didn't give them play. We didn't let them off. This is why I need Christina here, because it would have been this just myself, and I would have been embarrassed.
No, and I mean, there's so many layers too of like, and I think for us, like Harper, she's 10, and like we very much put emphasis on play.
Yeah.
Like if she comes home after school, she goes outside, and like what she does out there, as long as she's not hurting herself, like, just go play. And I think it's so important because, that teaches our kids things that they're not getting other places right now. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. And so I don't know if we want to like give some thoughts, like, how do we want to wrap this up, Jason? There's
Just give some thoughts about what parents can do. So play, so like ideas for pro-social play, right? And so like I remember reading an article. It's like, okay, so it's a single parent. There's a lot of single. Oh, if you're a single parent, I do not envy you.
No. And praise to our single parents.
Praise.
Like
this is it.
Are doing it, and it's amazing the amount of things I see single parents doing that I'm amazed all the time, because they have a different ilk to them. They are cut from a different cloth to be able to do what they do, and I'm very amazed by single parents.
More and more of them are standing up to their school boards and saying, this kid will not be on the Zoom at past 12. They will go outside and I will going to arrange things. And so some parents are doing kind of trailblazing parents. So like in terms of positive suggestions, like, please do not be hesitant to stand up to your school board.
Right.
Right. Like, what's the worst they can do?
Right. Advocate for your kid. I think that's important. And it might be scary. But I bet if parents talk to other parents, you could get a group of you together and just say, because I think the other thing is everyone's always worried, like, well, I can't do anything because I'm the only one, right? I don't want to be the only parent that's causing a scene or making a fuss or whatever else. There are other people thinking just like you that want to do the same thing. So speak up.
Advocate for your kid, programming playtime, programming pro-social time, advocate for if you're not getting it from the school, connect with other parents and have like Zoom time with your kids that is like, they're probably getting it anyway from their TikToks and their snaps and everything. And like, you have to, every kid is different. Some kids love this. Some kids, like, they just like, they can be on their social media all day. And it's like, I might've been that kid because I'm a little bit introverted, but like, just kind of like take that temperature and be, flexible with what the kid needs. It was like, if they're thriving, then whatever. If they're not thriving, then figure out another way to get them pro-social activity. And if it's going to skimp on, school and, so here's another thing, right? And this is kind of a mix of like, here's a problem, but here's a solution. So just the way that kids self-evaluate, like so many kids, I'll say like, okay, tell me about your parents. And they'll say, they're nice, but I don't want it to disappoint them. It's like, it just comes right out of their mouth that like, I see them and I just see like their disappointed faces.
Yeah.
Parents have to watch your affect.
Mm-hmm.
around your kids because they're absorbing it and you may not know it. And so that it
Right.
takes a video like this to point it out, but like your affect around the kid, like they're like you could say stuff, you could say, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, but do your work.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Right.
before the butt doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
Everything but, and and people know this from their personal thing, like you hear the wind up and it's like, okay, where's the butt? That's what the kid is thinking. When you're saying, I love you, I support you, I do whatever, but do your work
Mm-hmm.
is you. So watching your affect and watching the way you talk about things, watching the order of operations of
Mm-hmm.
what the messaging of the kids, so that's the eternal stuff to
Yeah.
really
And
watch for.
I think too, I think it's so easy not. So I think it boils down to self-awareness, right? Being self-aware of the commentary you make about either your job or hearing news of another person getting into a school. Like, what commentary are you making? Because your kids hear that commentary and they think and they start to form these hierarchies of what's important based off of what we talk about. And so if you're always talking about like, I got to keep working because I got to pay bills and I got to, then that's going to become something that's important for a kid. And they might think they need a well-paying job in order to be happy, which isn't true. So I think the commentary of parents is important. And I have to be very mindful of it because I use exercise and working out as a way to de-stress, right? And to manage my burnout and things. So I work out a lot, but I have to be very careful that I'm not putting out the message to my daughter that I'm working out because I want to look a certain way, right? And so I have to be very mindful of that. And there's just a lot of things that are easy to let slip or slide or not pay attention to that we don't think is going to impact our kids, but it really does.
So watch the way we talk to them, watch
Mm-hmm.
what they're getting. Like I can't tell you how many times, like I'll get a parent and I'll go over all this stuff and it's like they'll say, you don't understand, Jason, if I'm not on them they won't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they really feel that, and they really feel that in their soul, and maybe that on some level is true, but it's like if that's the message you're putting out there, they're going to go from you don't do anything to you're not worth anything real
Mm-hmm.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
Real fast. Again, kids are not little adults.
Right.
Their brains are forming, and they're still in a personalized, and they're still forming their identity. So if what they're hearing is do something, I have to be on you, and if you're going to do something, I have to watch your power school, I have to manage your grades, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And if that's what if you could say I love you all day, but if it's coming before the but, then it's not going to land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think too, I would like to add that we need to talk with our kids. I think so often parents talk at their children and they don't talk with their children. And they don't, check in on them and really ask them like, how are you doing? And what are some feelings that you're having right now? And I'll tell a story. So it was probably about 3/4 the way through the full quarantine. And Harper is a pretty resilient child in the sense that she has good, coping mechanisms, and she's just a good kid. Every parent says their kids are good kids, but I think she's pretty great. And we were going to bed and she was like, I got to tell you something. And she just broke down and she said, I think the quarantine is really killing our family and I'm having all these feelings. And she had really big emotions that she didn't know what to do with all those big feelings. And we talked about it. And I had no idea that she was feeling that way because I had gotten so caught up in my schedule, my work, my whatever, that I wasn't checking in with her like I had used to. Because we were all living in the same house, we were working from home, like we were all physically together, but we weren't actually connecting verbally with each other. And so it broke her and she was just like, we got to start talking again. And I was like, okay. So I think talking with our kids and having conversations and vulnerable conversations and open conversations will help them feel like if they get to the point where they don't know what to do or who to talk to, they at least feel like you're a safe person to help with those big feelings that they have.
Really underrated thing that happened during the pandemic too. A lot of teenagers report they feel more comfortable talking with their parent in a car. because, passenger seat, driver seat, they're just facing the same way. They're not facing each other.
Right.
Kids are they don't like that. This is competitive to them, the facing. So it's like, if you go, how are you doing? You can talk to me. You can tell. That's an attack. So like you face, like sit parallel to your kid as if you're sitting in a car. Like, and that's the thing another thing we lost in the pandemic, we're barely driving anymore.
Yeah.
So there's less opportunity for the kid to talk to the parent, because that's more where the kids are. Like, whenever I have a family session, I will sit the kid and the parent like side by side, like it's a
like a movie theater, like
a movie theater. Yeah, exactly. Auditorium. Like, I'll sit them like that, and I'll let them, and it works. It totally works. And so, like, just in terms of helping kids access stuff, being smarter about, like, okay, how my kid's not talking to me this way, let me try something different. Let me not just, you keep doing what you're doing, and keep getting what you're getting. If you're just going to answer their question, if you're going to just approach it the same way, you keep getting what you're getting, worse and worse results. Like, you got to change it up.
Another suggestion to that would be to take a walk. So, right, like when we have these built up stressors in our body, to let that stress work through the body, sometimes the walking will really help lessen that stuff too. And so also, when you're walking, you're side by side and facing forward. So that would be helpful.
We could keep going.
I know.
But again, wanted to get the message out there. And the point of this is to start a conversation. So start talking. And I always say that I'm starting conversations. Hopefully the conversations keep going, So like, again, this is self-help. We're focusing on teenagers, and this may sound board game adjacent, but we are gamers. We are parents. This is our future. These are people who we're hoping to bring into the hobby eventually, when they're developmentally appropriate to want to play like board games and card games and everything. So it's like, the kindness that we show now is like seeds in the ground. It will bear fruit. We will have, richer communities and happier people coming into our communities if we are attentive to this stuff now, and now more than ever.
Agreed.
Take it from two social workers who are working with teenagers and seeing it all on the front lines.
Yep.
So this is Shelf Help. You have tell us a little bit about what's coming up for Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and just yourself in general.
So not much as far as anything new. We've got our episodes released bi-weekly, so everybody can find us on Blue Peg, Pink Peg, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's where we're at. And we're really enjoying to see how the hobby is growing. Jason, you're doing a fabulous job of helping make the gaming industry a better place. So thank you for the work that you're putting out. And I think we all have a responsibility to just try to do better.
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
If you can change your mind, you can change the world. Until next time, later, everybody.